Today, we're cracking open a book that has been a secret weapon in business and a guide for friendships for almost a century. Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. But hey, this isn't a history lesson. We are pulling out its most powerful ideas and building a blueprint that actually works in the world we live in right now.
And you know, this idea of updating it isn't new. Dale's own wife, Dorothy, said it perfectly. She knew the core principles were absolutely timeless, but they needed to be reframed for a new generation. And that's exactly what we're going to do. Find the powerful, relevant core that works for you.
Okay, let me ask you something. What if I told you that 85% of your success in your career has almost nothing to do with how good you are at the technical parts of your job? Sounds a little crazy, right? But the research is surprisingly clear.
Yeah, it's true. Research from the Carnegie Foundation actually found that our technical skills, the stuff we spend so much time learning and perfecting, that only accounts for about 15% of our financial success. The other massive 85%, it all comes down to what Carnegie called human engineering. Basically, your ability to connect with people, to communicate, and to lead. It is, without a doubt, the ultimate career advantage.
So how in the world do we master that 85%? Well, here's our game plan. First, we'll get into the biggest hurdle we all face, our natural instinct to criticize. Then, we'll learn the trick to stepping into someone else's world so we can truly connect. After that, we'll see how to inspire change without making enemies. And finally, we'll wrap it all up by turning these ideas into your own personal action book.
All right, our first principle is the bedrock for everything else we're going to talk about. Because before you can influence anyone, you have to get a handle on yourself. And it all starts with one deceptively simple rule: no criticism.
Carnegie had this absolutely brilliant metaphor. He said criticism is like a homing pigeon because it always comes back to you. Think about it. When you criticize someone, what happens? They immediately get defensive. They'll start justifying why they did what they did, and deep down they'll start to resent you for it. So it's not just useless, it actually makes things worse.
And you know who learned this the hard way? Abraham Lincoln. Seriously. As a young man, he used to openly mock his political rivals. He almost ended up in a duel to the death because of it. That scare taught him a lesson he never, ever forgot. He completely changed his approach and adopted this idea of radical empathy. He realized that trying to understand someone is so much more powerful than condemning them.
But okay, avoiding criticism sounds great in theory. What about in the real world, when the stakes are high and someone on your team really messes up? Let's take a look at the story of Anna Mazzone, a marketing specialist who made a huge mistake on a really important project.
So Anna walks into this big meeting, totally prepared for the worst. She comes clean about the mistake, but her boss does something completely unexpected. He doesn't yell, he doesn't criticize. Instead, he thanks her for her honesty. He tells everyone he still has complete faith in her, and he makes it clear that one mistake doesn't define her work. By letting her save face, he didn't just avoid a fight. He built incredible loyalty and turned a total failure into a powerful lesson for his whole team. Just brilliant.
Okay, so if criticism is out, what's in? This brings us to the next, much more proactive step. To really influence someone, you have to stop thinking about what you want and start tuning in to their world. This, right here, is the million-dollar question. Carnegie said that the only way on earth to get anyone to do anything is to talk about what they want and then show them how to get it. You have to make them want to do it.
And Carnegie lived this. Get this. A hotel manager tried to triple the rent for a lecture hall he was using. Now, Carnegie didn't storm in and argue. Instead, he calmly wrote down all the pros and cons of the price hike, but from the hotel's perspective. He pointed out things like, well, if I can't afford the hall, you lose out on all the free publicity my events bring. As soon as the manager saw the situation through that lens, he willingly dropped the rent. No argument, no fight.
But this is so much more than a business tactic. It's a deeply human principle. And I don't think there's a better story to show this than one about a student nurse and a very lonely little boy.
What the nurse did here was just pure genius. She didn't just say, "Oh, I'm sorry you feel bad." She got on his level. She admitted she was lonely too. Then, she framed her request as if he would be doing her a favor by having dinner with her. That tiny shift, that genuine interest in his world, it transformed a day of absolute terror into a moment of real human connection. That's the real power here.
So you stopped criticizing, you've learned how to see the world from other people's point of view. Now what? How do you actually use that to help people grow, to help them change? In other words, how do you lead?
Let's look at how Carnegie himself handled this with his niece and secretary, Josephine. Whenever she made a mistake, he never just came out and said, "You did this wrong." He always started by talking about a bigger, dumber mistake that he had made in the past.
By admitting his own screw-ups first, he immediately took the sting out of the criticism. It wasn't a lecture anymore. It was a conversation between two imperfect people. That simple change in framing makes all the difference between someone getting defensive and someone actually listening.
And this really gives us the whole toolkit for effective leadership. See the common thread here? It's never about force or command. It's about guiding. You praise what people do right, you ask questions instead of barking orders, and you give people a great reputation to live up to. You basically inspire them to want to be better.
Okay, now we've reached the most important part of this whole explainer. Carnegie was so clear that his book was not meant to be just read. It was a manual for action. He believed that knowledge is basically useless until you actually apply it.
His message couldn't be clearer. Don't just read this stuff, do this stuff. Real change doesn't come from just knowing these ideas. It comes from trying them out, messing up, trying again, and slowly, over time, making them a part of who you are.
And here's the key, the big takeaway. This is not about some massive, overnight personality change. It's about small, consistent, and most importantly, sincere habits. Things like actually remembering someone's name, offering a genuine smile, putting your phone down and really truly listening. These are the tiny actions that, when you practice them, will absolutely revolutionize your relationships. Which brings us to our final question for you. Don't try to master all of this at once. Just pick one thing. Which single principle that we talked about today are you going to consciously put into practice? Because as Dale Carnegie knew so well, that one small action, that's where the real transformation begins.